You have one life, not two, not a rehearsal, not a draft you can edit later. One. And the uncomfortable truth is this: most people will spend that one life settling for average, settling for comfort, settling for a version of themselves that feels safe but never truly alive. They wake up with dreams and go to bed with excuses. But you're here because something inside you refuses to accept that fate. There's a voice, quiet but persistent, telling you that you are meant for more impact, more growth, more courage. And yet, every single day, you're faced with a choice. Do you follow that voice, or do you silence it just to fit in? Because mediocrity isn't a lack of talent. It's a decision. A slow one, a comfortable one, a dangerous one. And if you're not careful, it becomes your identity. So today isn't just another day. This is a wake-up call. Because one day, you will run out of time. And the only question that will matter is, did you live or did you just exist? Mediocrity is not something that happens to a man. It's something he slowly accepts. It begins in the small moments when he chooses what is easy over what is necessary, when he trades discipline for comfort, when he tells himself this is enough, even though he knows it isn't. From a man's perspective, the pressure to provide, to be stable, to avoid risk, can quietly turn into an excuse to stay average. He convinces himself that playing small is responsible, that staying safe is maturity, when in reality, it's fear wearing the mask of logic. And the more he repeats these choices, the more they shape his identity, until mediocrity feels normal. Mediocrity also reveals itself in how a man is seen and experienced by others, especially women who instinctively respond to direction, purpose, and emotional strength. From that perspective, a man who settles doesn't just limit his own life. He becomes predictable, stagnant, and uninspiring. It's not about perfection or constant success, but about movement, growth, and the willingness to confront discomfort. Because what draws respect isn't comfort, it's courage. And when a man avoids that call, he doesn't just lose opportunities, he loses a part of himself that was meant to lead, to build, and to become more. Comfort feels safe, but it quietly weakens a man over time. It convinces him that where he is good enough, that pushing further isn't necessary, that effort can wait until tomorrow. From a man's perspective, comfort often disguises itself as stability, having just enough, doing just enough, being just enough. But deep down, there's a tension he can't ignore, because men are wired to build, to strive, to test their limits. When that instinct is suppressed, it doesn't disappear. It turns into frustration, self-doubt, and a silent dissatisfaction that grows stronger with every avoided challenge. Comfort also shapes how a man is perceived, especially through a woman's lens, where consistency, direction, and growth signal strength. A man who chooses comfort over challenge may seem reliable at first, but over time, the lack of ambition becomes visible. It's not about constant success, but about the willingness to step into discomfort and evolve. Growth is attractive because it represents life, movement, and purpose. And when a man resists that pull toward growth, he doesn't just stay where he is. He slowly disconnects from the energy that makes him compelling, grounded, and worth following. Later sounds harmless, but it quietly steals a man's life, one delay at a time. It shows up when he knows what he should do, but convinces himself there's always more time, a better moment, a safer opportunity ahead. From a man's perspective, later feels strategic, like he's waiting for the right conditions to act. But in reality, it's hesitation rooted in fear of failure, judgment, or discomfort. And every time he chooses later, he weakens his own sense of urgency, training himself to delay action until the desire to act fades completely. Later also reshapes how a man is experienced by others, especially through a woman's perspective where decisiveness and follow-through signal strength. A man who constantly postpones his growth, his goals, or his commitments begins to appear uncertain, even if he has potential. It's not about having everything figured out, but about moving when it matters. Action builds trust both internally and externally. And when a man delays too often, he doesn't just lose time, he loses momentum, respect, and the version of himself that was ready to step forward before hesitation took over. Fear isn't there to stop a man, it's there to show him exactly where he needs to grow. It appears the moment he stands at the edge of something meaningful, something uncertain, something that demands more than who he is right now. From a man's perspective, fear often feels like a warning, a reason to step back, to protect what he already has. But that instinct, when left unchecked, keeps him locked in the familiar. Because the truth is, everything that builds strength, discipline, leadership, resilience, exists on the other side of that discomfort. Fear isn't the enemy. Avoiding it is what quietly erodes confidence over time. Fear also influences how a man is experienced by others, especially through a woman's perspective, where emotional steadiness and courage create a sense of trust. A man who acknowledges fear but still moves forward signals control, not perfection. It's not about eliminating fear, but about responding to it with intention. Because when fear dictates his choices, hesitation becomes visible and uncertainty takes the lead. But when he uses fear as a guide, as feedback, it transforms into presence, direction, and quiet strength that others can feel without a single word being spoken. Purpose isn't something a man stumbles upon. It's something he constructs through what he does every single day. It's not hidden somewhere waiting to be discovered when the timing is right or when life finally makes sense. From a man's perspective, the idea of finding purpose can become a trap, an excuse to delay action while searching for clarity. But clarity doesn't come before movement. It comes from movement. Every disciplined choice, every responsibility taken seriously, every moment he chooses growth over comfort becomes a brick in the foundation of who he is becoming. Without that daily effort, purpose remains an idea instead of a reality. Purpose is also reflected in how a man shows up in the world and how he is experienced by others, especially through a woman's perspective where consistency, direction, and intent carry more weight than empty ambition. A man who talks about his goals but fails to act on them creates doubt, while a man who quietly builds day after day creates trust and respect. It's not about having a perfectly defined mission, but about demonstrating commitment to becoming better, stronger, and more reliable over time. Because what stands out isn't what a man says he wants, it's what his actions prove he is willing to work for. Even when no one is watching, the life you want isn't blocked by circumstances, it's blocked by who you currently are. Every goal, every vision, every standard you imagine for your future requires a version of you that thinks differently, acts differently, and shows up differently than you do today. From a man's perspective, it's easy to focus on external upgrades. More money, more status, more recognition, but or the internal shift required to sustain them. Because the truth is, you don't rise to a new life without first raising your discipline, your standards, and your tolerance for discomfort. And if those don't change, the results won't either, no matter how badly you want them. Growth demands that a man confront the habits and identities he's outgrown, but still holds on to. The behaviors that once felt comfortable begin to feel limiting, yet letting go of them creates resistance. From a psychological standpoint, men often tie their identity to what is familiar, even when it no longer serves them. Changing means stepping into uncertainty, risking failure, and facing parts of themselves they've avoided. But Transformation only begins when a man stops negotiating with his potential and starts holding himself accountable to a higher standard, even when it's inconvenient, even when no one else is asking him to do so. Transformation is also visible in how a man is perceived and experienced by others, especially through a woman's perspective, where emotional strength, direction, and consistency signal true growth. A man who evolves doesn't just talk about change. He embodies it through his actions, his decisions, and the way he carries himself. It's not about becoming someone else, but about becoming more aligned with who he's capable of being. Because the life he wants is already demanding more from him, and until he meets that demand, it remains just out of reach.